Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome on in for some more fun in the wing of Batman here on Houselights. I am one of your hosts here on the Nerd Party, John Mills. John Batman Mills, if you will. And I am joined today by my sidekick, the acrobatic Darren Moser, and our nemesis, the decked out in green, Tristan Riddell, also known as the Riddler, or should it be Riddeller? What do you think, Darren? Riddeller? He's the Riddeller?
Oh, Riddler by far.
Riddeller it is.
We need a shirt now of that.
You know, I do think that maybe you need to pick an outfit that maybe is a little looser, breathes a little better, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Not so tight in certain areas.
You know, flexibility can be affected after a certain point. I'm just throwing that out there just as a tip for anybody looking for a full body leotard. So, you know, before we get into this, of course, we're here on the Nerd Party. You could go ahead and find us out there on the socials and everything like that and have a great time. We are Join Nerd Party on X. We're the Nerd Party on Blue Sky and Facebook and nerdparty.com/contact, because we expect that there will be some discussion points coming out of this episode wherein we're going to be looking at Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, directed by the late, great, and I do not say great sarcastically, the late, great Joel Schumacher. And these are two movies that were probably for a long time the most polarizing fan-based movies ever made. And I'm so looking forward to discussing them. Now, gentlemen, my question is not about the first time we saw these. We'll get to that. My question is, how familiar were you two with the works of Joel Schumacher before you saw Batman Forever?
Solid question. When I saw it, zero. I had no idea of Schumacher beforehand.
Okay. Darren?
Yeah. No, I knew nothing about him. It was the list of directors I knew was like 4, like, you know, the big ones.
Fair.
Like Spielberg, Lucas, you know, maybe throw in a few others. I was not consuming by director credit alone yet.
Now, so everybody knows, he had one hell of a filmography just leading up to this moment in time. His debut was The Incredible Shrinking Woman in 81. Then he did DC Cab in 83, which is it is a product of its time, and it's a comedy, and it has Mr. T. And if I need to say anything else to recommend it to you, I don't know what else I could say. He did St. Elmo's Fire, which was the Brat Pack coming out party. He did The Lost Boys, which stands as one of the greatest soundtrack movies ever, and one of the most fun movies of the 80s. He did Cousins, which we won't talk about that. It's a little weird. It's an American remake of a French film. Flatliners, Dying Young, Falling Down, which is very much regarded as a classic.
And is coming out with a 4K release real soon.
Yes, it is. And The Client, riding the John Grisham wave of popularity. And that all leads up to Batman Forever. So with that, I can speak from the perspective of somebody, you know, older than the two of you. Hearing Joel Schumacher is taking it over, we all wanted Tim Burton to come back, but it was like, okay, well, Schumacher's a known entity. Val Kilmer was a hot commodity. Tommy Lee Jones, my gosh, Jim Carrey's going to be in this. It was huge hype coming around it. Now, if you guys weren't watching for director by that point, I'm like, what was the hype train like for you, Darren, when Batman Forever came out? Like, was it something where you were like super excited by this Batman movie coming out? Or is this just something that was just like ephemeral to you?
I'm trying to remember, and I honestly feel this was probably a blockbuster rental for me. I don't think I saw this in initial. I was just a hair young, and I think Jim Carrey is more what did it. Nothing against Jim Carrey, but in the like family households, I think he wasn't the draw for my family of like that kind of humor. I think that was the concern based on his like other work. So I think I definitely picked this up. This is definitely a watch at a friend's house on like a, you know, a sleepover or having fun or renting from Blockbuster. I'm pretty sure that's how I consume this one. But just looking at the poster, the cover, you know, it is vibrant with color, John. There's so much color just in the cover right there, you know, versus the use of black, white, and red in previous movies. So when I did get around to it, I was just interested in this interaction of villains, because they're starting to like add lots of villains into
Oh,
every
yes.
movie. And so I was curious, like, okay, Two-Face and the Riddler, not the two I would expect to be paired, but we'll get into that pairing. So that was my initial response.
Well, Tristan, regardless of everything else, was the hype train at least something you were aware of? Did your family get swept up in the hype train at all for this movie? Because it was huge.
Man, this I remember this age. Like this was, you say the hype train was huge, and that's not an exaggeration. It was gigantic. Schumacher originally wanted to go in a darker tone, kind of like Burton. He wanted to continue that. But Warner Brothers was like, listen, no, we got to sell toys. We got to sell Happy Meals. We cannot have a repeat of Batman Returns. And Schumacher's like, fine. And he just kind of ran with it. But at the same time, even though he wanted a darker tone and explore Bruce Wayne's psyche a little bit more, he still wanted to have this 1940s Gotham mixed with neon cyberpunk Tokyo. And
Yeah.
Keaton was just like, no, thank you.
Yeah,
And
that is very notable. I'm glad you said that about how Keaton saw where it was going, and he was like, I'm exercising my option not to participate. Thanks, guys.
But regardless of that, I was at the perfect age for this movie, because this came out in 95. I was born in 86. And so I was 9 years old. I'm the same age as my eldest is right now. And I was over the moon, because when I saw Batman Returns, I should say when I saw the marketing for Batman Returns, I was like, this is kind of weird. I don't know if this is for me. Like, I'm a big Batman fan, but this just doesn't feel like something accessible for me. But then when I see Batman Forever, and then of course a 9-year-old sees Jim Carrey, I'm like, holy crap. Okay, yeah, I gotta be there. And I still remember seeing the trailer for the first time on TV, and we see Bruce Wayne fighting at the circus. And I lose my mind. Like, I went and ran to the kitchen to find my dad and said, oh my God, Batman fights without a suit. He fights without his suit. And just like, even just stuff like that. And then you see all the Happy Meal stuff, all the promotion, video games, stuff on cable. And it's just, I was all about it. I was there opening weekend with my family, like my whole family. And also, my sister didn't really give a damn about Batman, but she was a huge fan of Chris O'Donnell, and she was really getting into music, because I think she was 13 at the time. And so because of the soundtrack that came out before the movie did, and because of Chris O'Donnell, she went to the theater with us to go see Batman Forever.
Now, see, I'm glad you mentioned the soundtrack, because usually we save it for later in the discussion, but I have to call it out. The soundtrack, regardless of how you felt about the movie when it came out, the soundtrack was huge, like absolutely huge. And I still stand by the soundtrack. It is an absolute banger soundtrack. And what's really interesting, and Darren, I'll be interested for your take on this. When Prince's soundtrack came out in 89, we talked about this. Everybody was like, what the hell, man? Where's Danny Elfman's score? This soundtrack came out, and nobody was asking for the score, as I recall. Nobody was like, no, but I got to have that score. Now, the tide has shifted a little bit in recent times. I know they've released it, and, people have different opinions about it. Everything mileage may vary. In terms of soundtrack, is this a score where you were like, they did it completely wrong, they should have come out with the score just like they did for Danny Elfman? Or are you perfectly good with the soundtrack as it stands right now? Like, for me, the soundtrack opens with Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, which is an outtake from some studio sessions for U2. But, do you feel the same affinity for the music in this film that we all did for Elfman's work in the previous two?
I'm going to take my response as Tristan would give it. No, I am probably the wrong person to ask about this. But it is an interesting discussion about that score versus soundtrack, because there are definitely times when, a score, I want to give him right, a soundtrack, comes out, and you have all the themes, and I love a good theme. I love a good Batman theme. I love I love, making you connect to that character. But, the score, when you have it mixed with the pop culture, music and all of that together, it's definitely more of locking it into a moment in time, into that's where you're like, oh, that's right, this was 90s. this was very, very 90s.
Oh, it is very 90s, but Elliot Goldenthal's score, Trissa, do you think they did him dirty back then? He doesn't even get his theme anywhere on the soundtrack that they released.
Yes, I do think they did him dirty because I love Goldenthal. Not a lot of people do. Like, it's too harsh and brassy for a lot of people, and I completely respect that. But for me, I was all about it. Like, of course, Elfman is Elfman when it comes to Batman and Batman Returns. I mean, it's iconic. You cannot separate the resurgence of Batman and pop culture and cinematic culture, I should say, and Elfman. You just can't. I mean, like, his music was reused in Joss Whedon's Justice League. It was utilized in countless video games and animated series, as we've talked about. Like, it's a staple. But Goldenthal, I think it would have been disingenuous to have Elfman in Batman Forever because the tonality was just so crazy different. And you needed something that was in your face. You needed something that would slap you across the face and stick a French horn in your ear. And that's what Goldenthal did. And I'm a big, Interview with the Vampire is one of my favorite scores of all time. And Goldenthal did that.
That's a great score.
And so he always has a special place in my heart. And there are moments, I'm not going to say everything's perfect, because there are moments when, like, he kind of leans into the electric guitar and you're just like, what are you doing, Elliot? What's going on?
I think that with Goldenthal, I think he's given a very difficult task, and he does what the movie asks of the composer. Like, if anything, his theme sounds like Danny Elfman through a funhouse mirror sort of thing, where it's like, it's a little wacky. But I think that what you're talking about, Tristan, with the tone, I think visually, obviously, even if Schumacher has said, oh, I wanted to go darker, the script definitely skews darker than the final product that we got. There's no doubt in my mind. And I know that there are outtakes that people have pointed to where they're like, release the Schumacher cut and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah, there's a fan cut out there that I need to get my hands on because I have to see it. I don't know why I've taken this long to get it.
I would love to see that myself. It's morbid curiosity more than anything else, because Darren, in terms of that shifting tone, includes a shift in visual tone. The way this is shot, the way color is used, you alluded to it earlier. Do you think it works? Or is this something where the artifice is such that it would take the audience out of it? Do you see the same stretch for reality from the first two, for instance?
I feel it works. It definitely is leaning more into that comic vibe. Like, it's interesting. While it doesn't feel like we're going to restart everything, we're going to ignore what happened in the first two movies, it does feel like a whole new director with a whole new vision is starting over is too strong a phrase, but their interpretation, especially with the colors, the framing, it's wackier. Like, the characters, like, they're leaning into, Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones are, they're bouncing off the walls, and then Kilmer's there, super stoic, kind of trying to ground it back into semi-reality, and then we're floating, ghost particles out of people's heads. Like, it does not take itself too seriously, and I don't think it should.
Looking at the device itself, it has a bunch of styrofoam in it, and it's a blender. Right. So you're absolutely right. The visual flair with this
box
is really interesting to me. And Tristan, as a lifelong Batman fan, do you see the comic book Batman, an era of comic book Batman, embedded in this work?
This is, whether people like the movie or not, this is the perfect Batman comic book adaptation. And I say that as a lifelong Batman fan. Do I think this movie is perfect? Not at all. Do I think that people who dislike it are wrong? No, I don't. I think if you dislike it, you have every right to. And I think there's a lot wrong with it. And there's a lot of criticisms that are absolutely valid. But if you look at 80s Batman, 90s Batman, 2000s Batman, even 2020s Batman, even like the brand new continuity that they just released, the DCU or whatever, not like DC as in like YOU, not the DCU as in James Gunn's business. This is when you read a comic book, it's this movie, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. Now, of course, are there exceptions? Yes, of course there are exceptions. Like like you're reading Three Jokers or something, or you're reading, you know,
Watchmen.
some yeah, or something like that. But I'm talking about specifically Batman. Like, are there serious Batmans? Of course. Are there black labels? Of course. That are more serious than this or grittier than this? Of course. If you're looking at Frank Miller, yes, it's going to skew more towards Keaton and Burton than you do with Schumacher. But I'm talking about my mainstream, everyday, every weekly issue of Batman. It's going to be more akin to Batman Forever than it is not. And I'm sure there are people out there who disagree with me, and they're wrong. But it's just this movie, when you look at how serious Batman is, that is how serious Batman is in the comics. When you look at how wacky and goofy that the characters can be, that's how it is in the comics. And
Yes.
just even from the design of their outfits to the way that Two-Face and Riddler talks, the way that Batman talks, the way that Robin talks, even though you want to stab a pencil in his ear, it's just, that's how he talks. And Alfred being the mainstay, it's kind of like, how we talked about with Adam West, where he wasn't silly, but he took silliness very seriously. Val Kilmer's Batman understands that there's absurdity around him and he has to navigate it.
I think that's very fair. I agree with your take. I think the visual sensibilities, like I'll point to Batman when he first swings in, looks like a splash page.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like I've gotten to page, the page 3, 4 in, and Batman swinging across this big, beautiful layout with all of this color and everything like that. I think that the use of certain angles very much belong in comic book. And I think that where people probably struggle with this movie, and Darren, I'd love your take on this, is we're 3 movies in. If I go to a James Bond movie, draw something, draw a straw, draw a card, whatever you want to say, can you name the director most times? Unless you're a James Bond fan, but you still know the structure, the look, the way everything's going to be approached. Do you think that's what alienated fans, some fans at the time, was that they broke the James Bond promise that even if a new director came in, we'd at least continue the momentum of the previous entries?
I agree. This was not James Bond as much as I thought it would be. And that really disappointed me. No, it's one of those things that you do have to kind of look back, and because it's so easy to nowadays in 2026 look back and go like, oh yeah, the Batman franchise, you get a different flavor every couple of movies based on the director. That's just what it is. But now, way back to 95, and there's only been really, we discount the 66 because we set that to the side. Everybody does. But, Batman and Batman Returns has established that new course. So yeah, this is definitely a deviation from that. And I can see people going like, oh, it's not, Keaton, it's not Burton, it's not the Batman I was expecting. So, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that the Batman franchise became the flavor of the season because it gave us a lot more variety. When we talk about, Dark Knight and moving on into there, you want to talk about gritty, going back to realism. It's swinging the pendulum way back, but I like the fun of this. I would love a comic shaded copy of this movie, like to pull out key frames with speech bubbles of this movie. I would read that over and over because you can. I'm thinking of, oh, there's a good one. He's looking at the diamond. He's like, no, there's a good one. Like, that's a sell. Those should be cells that come out of the page at me. And they're all over this movie. So I can see it breaking the promise in air quotes, but I guess in hindsight on what the franchise became, I personally am glad that it became more of a interpretation based on the director than Batman. We all know what Batman's like. There's nothing really changes. We've gotten 10 movies and that's just what it is. It's more like who is playing Batman, because that's where you're going to get a little bit of variety. That's the Bond model, but I'm glad that Batman is not the Bond.
I love your points on that. I truly do. And I definitely think the success of Batman Forever, it backs up what you're saying there, that like it was a refresher and it was different. 2 points. You mentioned you'd love to pull panels out like a comic book. I remember the comic book adaptation of this. And it was beautiful. It was beautifully illustrated. And it actually has a moment that I don't know if it was ever filmed or was just in the script, but was great, where Two-Face and the Riddler are sharing the brain drain thing. And one of them, and I think it's Two-Face, says, "My God, Jim Morrison was right." And the other one says, "About what? Everything." Which, as a Doors fan, I was like, this is my happiest moment in history. A Batman comic is validating my Jim Morrison love. But Tristan, the flip side, the dark side of that is, do you think that what fans are some of the fans who rejected this were reacting to is that this is the movie they expected in 89. 89 gave them something sublimely different. And then it's as if Warner Brothers hit a reset button and they're like, wait a minute, what happened? Do you think if this had been in reverse, the reactions would have been different?
I think there's no pleasing people. I think people are going to freak out no matter what. I think it's very rational to say that if you flipped it, some people would be happy, because there are people who grew up on West and wanted a comic booky type interpretation. I think there was a lot of people who would have seen Batman Forever and gone like, okay, cool. Still too dark for my taste, but hey, it's the 90s or it's 89, whatever. But then you have people who were excited after they saw 89 and were just like, oh yeah, Frank Miller. Okay, yeah, this is clearly Miller's Batman. And it was. You had that tonality, like it completely shifted in the 80s, and we all know what we're talking about. We all know what I'm talking about. And so I feel like you needed this period in time. Okay, so like Burton, not a Batman fan. And that's the kind of movie that we get. And people really liked it. And there's a reason why people really liked it, is because it's a cinematic language. Burton spoke in a cinematic language and interpreted the character in a non-comic book way. Schumacher, big Batman fan, loves the comics, loves the character, and it came across on screen. It's a comic book film. 89 wasn't really a comic book film. And True. I think if Forever came out today, it would do better than it would have in 89.
It's interesting. I love the points you're making there, because what a comic book movie was the definition, people are always fighting about that. And I just want to re-illustrate the landscape for everybody, just a sampling of the stuff that came out after 89's Batman. We have Darkman in 1990, which is Sam Raimi humor all over Batman, including a Danny Elfman score. We have The Mask, which is Jim Carrey. We have The Crow, which is, you know what? That Batman was dark, but we really want to go dark. And we mean dark. We have The Rocketeer, which is, honestly, I adore I think we all three adore The Rocketeer, and The Rocketeer belongs much more in this silly vein than it does in Batman Forever. So in this silly vein than 89 Batman. I think that part of the back and forth is that whole thing about quote unquote defining what a comic book movie is. And I think that's sort of the dangerous territory that movie studios were getting into in the 90s, was there was no definition, and negative reactions were all about what a particular person defined a comic book movie as. I mean, you had Judge Dredd, for Pete's sake, right? Like, what lane does that even belong in? That's Disney's first, real foray into it and everything. You have The Shadow, which was a reviled movie at the time that came out. I love it.
I love that movie so much.
I do.
I love
too.
The Shadow. It's so great.
And Adam Bomb. Hey, that's catchy. I think that, it really revolves around that. I can say firsthand that even though I got caught up in the retrospective hatred of this movie, it's sort of like when I saw Star Trek V when I was very young, and it was the first Star Trek movie I saw in the theater, and I walked out of it and I was like, I really liked that. And then my relatives gently but very firmly said, no, you really didn't. And let's tell you why. And I think, if anything, comic book movies, that's a very fertile environment for those types of discussions, if that makes sense. So I think Batman Forever lands really well with everybody in general. I remember it being a big hit, and I think that the numbers speak to that. But since we have another one to talk about, I would be remiss to spend too much time here with Batman Forever. But before we get to Batman and Robin, Darren, is there anything you think we've left on the table here that we haven't addressed about Batman Forever that you really wish we would have?
So rewatching this was really enjoyable because it had been a while. It had been a long while since I actually had popped in this movie. It's not one of my go-tos. I needed to borrow it. I really enjoyed Tommy Lee Jones' performance and the interaction between him and Jim Carrey. because like one of my favorite action movies is Under Siege, and he's so much that same character, that chaos character. He just happens to have a pink side, and a non-pink side. So visually, it's a little much, but I love just how he is. It's Tommy Lee Jones. It's a perfect role for him in that. And Jim Carrey's just being Jim Carrey. He's bouncing off the walls. He's, definitely a departure from what we'd seen in 66. That's a very, I want to say cerebral, which is not a pun, but I think they did a good job with this pairing. We're going to talk about more villain pairings, but I think this villain pairing on paper does not make sense. But, like I can't imagine an episode of Batman, the animated series, where the Riddler and Two-Face teamed up like this, but it works somehow in this story. And yeah, we're just getting more and more. We're tossing in Robin, who kind of gets shoehorned origin story in the byline, but it's there. We get that. But yeah, overall, this is it's a fun movie, and it enjoys being fun. And I love the constant of Alfred. I think that's always to reference your Bond metaphor, that's Q sticking through, even though he, you're like, does he not notice this is Val Kilmer? This is a very different person. But that doesn't.
Well, I think it's terrific that you mention Tommy Lee Jones and enjoying him so much, because I can tell you as a Two-Face is right up there with the Joker for me. Like, I adore the character, and there's still a part of me that's like, Tommy Lee Jones is playing a character called Two-Face, but it's not the Two-Face I know.
Yeah.
But, I can let that go. And the fact that Tommy Lee Jones told Jim Carrey how much he hated him on set.
I love that story.
What professionalism, though? Because it didn't come across on screen.
It wasn't on set, though. It was at a restaurant.
Oh, was it a restaurant? Okay.
It was at a restaurant. He says, I cannot... What do you say? I cannot condone your buffoonery or something like that.
Well, I mean,
I buy that.
But on set, it never came through. Like in the movie, you don't look at this guy and be like, man, he hates Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
He's a professional. He showed up and he's like, Tristan, what have I left on the table? Anything before we move on to Batman and Robin?
I really wish we would have spent the whole episode on Batman Forever, because I feel like there's so much more to talk about. Like, even though I really like Tommy Lee Jones as his interpretation of Two-Face, because John, I totally get what you're saying. I really do love this interpretation because it's so freaking insane and it's so over the top that I loved seeing Tommy Lee Jones chew the scenery and have fun with it. But I very much miss Billy Dee as Two-Face. But apparently,
yes.
Schumacher so vehemently did not want Billy Dee as his Two-Face that they paid him, because he had pay or play in his contract for this character. And so Billy Dee got a paycheck for Batman Forever, even though he wasn't the character.
Oh, wow.
And apparently Val Kilmer and Schumacher did not get along.
At all.
At all. Like, Val Kilmer had a horrible time being in the suit. He didn't dislike the movie per se, but it was very much like he was in constant pain. He lost weight because of it. It was 100 pounds. The suit was 100 pounds itself, and he couldn't hear anything. Like, he couldn't hear anybody when he was performing. So he had to kind of read lips. And so there's so much that's going on behind the scenes. And Schumacher was more than happy to recast Kilmer. And Kilmer was more than happy to say no thank you to Batman and Robin.
As I recall, wasn't there an incident where Kilmer shoved him during a disagreement on set? I remember reading that somewhere.
I don't know. I don't remember hearing that, and I didn't see it in my research lately. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I don't have any recollection of that. But it was it was a situation where I think there was like 2 weeks where Kilmer completely didn't speak to Schumacher directly. Like, it was just real diva stuff on set. And Kilmer was very much known for that kind of business. Like, if you notice, his career had many peaks and valleys. Because he was often difficult to work with and sometimes only worked on certain phases of the moon. So,
hey, you got to find your inspiration somewhere, right?
And also we haven't talked about Nicole Kidman.
Oh my gosh, you're right. That is, you know what? That's a huge oversight. And honestly, I don't mind really going over on the Batman Forever part, because Batman and Robin is going to be a It's going to be a weird, possibly brief discussion. So you
Nicole
run with Miss Kidman here.
I don't do this very often on this podcast. I don't have this kind of mentality, and I don't express these kind of feelings. But Nicole Kidman in 95 as Chase Meridian, this movie awakened certain things in me as a 9-year-old. I found out certain things about myself with Sugar and Spice and Leather and Lace, with Two Faces crew, and Chase Meridian getting up to say hello to Batman at midnight. It's just, this movie is a cornerstone in figuring certain things out about myself.
Well, I think that what's interesting is also is Pat Hingle continuing on as Commissioner Gordon. What I think is interesting in that light, and Darren, you talked about how, Michael Goff as Alfred is a constant. What's really fascinating to me is Hingle seems to change his performance ever so slightly. And that's where in this director-focused podcast, I will give Schumacher a lot of credit, because that's a director communicating to a veteran of the previous two movies where there were different sets of rules. He obviously sat down with Hingle and he said, listen, Pat, I love you. I need you to play it a little sillier than you did before. And to Hingle's credit, Hingle goes, I get you. I understand. Yeah, I see the set. I got you, man. I've been doing this for decades. I'm totally on with you. Got it. Different vibe. Cool. And I got to give Schumacher a lot of credit, because Jim Carrey was a force of nature at this point. But Schumacher gave constructed guardrails in such a way that Carrey's performance, while outsized, never goes beyond the limits. Like it doesn't become Jim Carrey's movie. There's a very thoughtful balance struck. This is a director very much in control of his set, who's not restraining his actor, but saying to his actor, give me this, but maybe, a little bit darker, maybe a little bit less over the top. Let's work with what we want to do here as a whole. And I think it is one of those things where he also then knows when to lean into what Carrey's talents truly were at that time. And recognize, I would say, in Carrey, a type of dramatic talent that others didn't see. And there are certain moments in this where he gets an unexpected little human touch out of Carrey. So that's the praise I will give Schumacher. I think Schumacher understood as well that Tommy Lee Jones didn't want to be upstaged by Carrey, and was like, he didn't care what was on the page. Two-Face was going to be every bit as big as the Riddler. And the director understands, okay, you know what? Tommy Lee Jones is a big star in his own right. I'm going to let him do what he does, and I'm going to direct it in the right way so that everything comes together. So I think, if anything, Batman Forever is a terrific example of a director knowing how to run his production in such a way that the fault lines never show. He's able to stitch everything together in a very, very sensible way. But does that carry through to Batman and Robin 2 years later, with George Clooney stepping into the bat suit? Now, I know I went on for a bit about Schumacher as a director there. Darren, if you watch Batman and Robin, do you see those same qualities of a director confidently in charge of his movie set and directing it in a certain way? Or do you see somebody going, all right, let's get the paycheck, yo? Where do you see him falling on that scale?
I mean, that's definitely a scale. Gosh, Batman and Robin. I mean, you just mention it, and already people are thinking, because it is such a it's one to talk about for sure. And yeah, I mentioned earlier about how I felt the Riddler / Two-Face, how bizarre a pairing it still worked. In Batman and Robin, they are just throwing rogues into the screen, and it's so bizarre. Like, I don't know why, but Poison Ivy and then Bane is there for some reason.
Why not?
And why not? Why not? That is exactly, that is the theme of the movie. Why not? We're going to have some cool craziness going on. Why not? They're going to talk about, buying people, why not? It's just, it's coming off the rails a bit. I think, I guess, to go on that scale, if this was Schumacher's first movie, I don't think he would ever get Forever.
I agree.
Like there's no way he would get a second movie, which we know because this stopped his Batman.
This stopped the entire franchise for a decade.
It did
for God's
lots
sake.
of things. What did Clooney say? Like, sorry, I killed the franchise. Like,
but
he
see,
was not wrong.
That's where I'll call out Clooney. Clooney's being a team player on that one.
That's true.
He took the bullet. He fell on his sword for that one.
He's I'm first on the call sheet. You have certain responsibilities kind of.
I've always given Clooney a lot of credit for taking the blame because, it is something else. Tristan, same question to you. Do you agree with Darren? Do you see the same confident Schumacher taking control in Batman Forever, or does Batman and Robin paint a different directorial picture for you?
I don't think it's a situation of things running out of control. I don't even think it's a situation of him not caring. I think he did care. I think this is the movie that he wanted to make. I think what happened is that he learned the wrong lessons from Forever. I think he got heat from Forever, and there was a lot of issues about tone and balancing of tone in Forever, because you have this very serious exploration of Bruce Wayne's psyche mixed with a Riddler in green tights running around. And, there's baseball theme music as he's grabbing his crotch. That tone is all over the place. And so I feel like he kind of went in the direction that he's like, okay, well, I wanted to make Forever darker. I wanted to have these explorations. The studio wouldn't let me. People thought I had an uneven tone. Okay, I'm going to make the tone consistent. And that's what he did in Batman and Robin. It doesn't make it a good movie at all, but it has a much more consistent tone than Forever. Is it the wrong tone? Yes. But I feel like with Batman and Robin, it's just, so if Forever is a perfect comic book adaptation, not saying it makes it a perfect movie, but in my opinion, if it's a perfect comic book adaptation, Batman and Robin is the Adam West interpretation.
Oh, I would actually go a step down from that. And I would say Batman, if you're talking about Batman Forever is a perfect comic book adaptation, I would then say Batman and Robin is akin to finding that 1957 issue of Batman in the store where you open it up and you're like, man, they really hadn't figured this character out by that point, had they?
That is 100% way better than what I said. And actually what I meant, yes, I 100% agree with you on that one.
Now, see, I think a different part of it as well is that Jim Carrey's coming up in Batman Forever. Val Kilmer's star is being minted, but it's still forming. Nicole Kidman's up and coming. Chris O'Donnell's up and coming. I think with Batman and Robin, a real X factor to it is Arnold Schwarzenegger, because Schwarzenegger brings his own script doctors. Schwarzenegger wants his own one-liners that he's known for. All of those sorts of the Ice Age. I remember seeing this movie in the theater with my brother, and the one thing, we were just aghast through the entire thing. And one thing that I'll never forget is when Poison Ivy holds up her little puppet plant that's talking in the jar or whatever, and looking over at my brother who was sitting on my left, looking over at him and getting ready to say something snarky about it. And my brother not even looking at me. And he just holds up his hand as if to say, I can't even talk about, let's just get through this, man. And after the movie, my Lord, were we off to the races. Now, an interesting thing lately is there's been a lot of interviews with Schwarzenegger talking about his competitiveness with Stallone. Have you guys seen his quotes about how he got $30 million for this movie and why he campaigned so hard for $30 million for this movie? Have you seen those yet?
No.
Apparently, it was because he was so upset that he couldn't one-up Stallone in terms of money, is why he held out so hard for $30 million to prove to Stallone that he was the bigger star. That's a very paraphrased version of it, but it's a fascinating series of interviews with Schwarzenegger where he was apparently just psychotically focused on beating Stallone, of all things.
Well, with Mr. Freeze and Schwarzenegger, it's so
awful. Sorry, didn't mean to speak for you.
It makes me think of two things. One, it reminds me back when I think was being considered for RoboCop at one point, and the reason they didn't go with it was they said, "Oh, can you imagine someone that big in armor? They would be massive." And Mr. Freeze proves that point. Like, he is ginormous in this movie. But the other thing is reading from Chris O'Donnell talking about, he's like, oh, I never shot a single day with Schwarzenegger. Like, there are so many like stunt fill in person shot, reverse shot that they, and when you actually start to look at it and think about it, you're like, oh, Schwarzenegger's not even scenes where you swear they would be together. You're like, no, those are actually both single shots. Like, they're not in the same room together. And it's kind of disappointing that you don't get that it's just, on top of this movie being heavily redubbed to get all the sound in properly. So yeah, I mean, gosh, if you're being paid $30 million for a movie to be a headline villain, it doesn't pull out in the third act with the, you still got a heart beneath the snow. I'm like, no.
So I'm glad we're talking about that, because in terms of Schwarzenegger being cast as Mr. Freeze, you talk about the suit. My God, look at the ridiculousness of the suit. One of the things that we praised about Batman Forever, we've been talking about, is the art direction. It looks beautiful and all that sort of thing. Tristan, do you think that production sensibility carried forward, or do you think they rushed this way too fast? Like, is this a victim as well of trying to get it out to market as quickly as possible, and they should have waited another year or two, given it more time to gestate?
Yeah, the production design of Forever felt deliberate. It was a very specific way of doing things and way of presenting Gotham, and it was very different from Burton's Gotham. I mean, incredibly different. That's why I have a hard time feeling like the Schumacher era is the same Batman as the Burton era. I have a real problem reconciling that. I kind of feel like it's a not so soft reboot where if you want to ignore the previous two movies, you 100% can. Like, if you erased Returns in 89, nothing in Forever changes. Absolutely nothing changes. And I feel like, I feel like in my head, Forever and Batman and Robin didn't happen to Keaton, but the things that happened to Keaton did happen to Kilmer and Clooney, but just in a different way. It's like,
okay,
that's kind of, it's my own headcanon. It doesn't mean anything. It's just how I wrap my head around things. But anyway, and so with that in mind, with it being so different visually, that kind of lends itself to being like this almost separate continuity. But in Batman and Robin, the production design and how they present Gotham, you're just kind of like, what are we doing here? It took the aesthetic of Forever and then made it its own thing in Batman and Robin. Like when they're when Freeze and Robin and Batman are driving on the statues themselves and like jumping off the fingers, we're just like, okay, you took something that was interesting in Forever, like with, like very Russian kind of Soviet Union-esque statues, and then you made it its own. Like you enlarged them by 10, a factor of 10, and then put,
made it ludicrous.
Set pieces.
It's like Gotham Metropolis. Like it's way off
but
scale.
Not Superman Metropolis. You're talking about the 1920s, the classic film Metropolis. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
bad example, but yes.
And so with that, it's just kind of like it just felt off. And I do want to say this before we move on too much. I love watching this movie. Do I love this movie? No. Do I love watching this movie? Yes. It has taken years and years to get to this point.
I agree with you. Yes. Wholeheartedly.
Batman and Robin is so much fun to watch because it's so stupid. It's so over the top. It's so silly. And it's just, so Clooney does a terrible job. I've never liked Chris O'Donnell. Alicia Silverstone, good Lord. And, but the thing.
Don't get me started about Alicia Silverstone. I'll get in trouble, but I will just say, don't give her complex words to say in this movie because it doesn't fly.
But Poison Ivy, Uma Thurman knew exactly what movie she was in. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew how to play it. She knew how to deliver her lines. When you watch her and you watch her delivery, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, she's a part of this movie. George Clooney is not in the same movie as Uma Thurman.
True.
And Schwarzenegger kind of goes back and forth a little bit, where you're just like, oh, okay, like he's fun, he's over the top, but at the same time, you're just kind of like, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. What am I trying to say here?
Well, you're trying to say that Schwarzenegger, like this is a movie that doesn't come together, where the fault lines are not stitched over or paved over or anything like that. This is a movie where you can tell that it's made in parts and just assembled in the editing bay, where people were just doing it. That's why I made the collecting a paycheck thing. Do I think Schumacher is that type of director? No, but I think 2 years is incredibly fast to turn out a movie like this. It's just incredibly fast. That means the movie gets, Batman Forever gets released in 95. 2 years for a movie at this scale? It's shocking to me that it's the same cinematographer, because the movie looks like the person who's shooting it didn't shoot the last one. They're just flying by the seat of their pants trying to figure it out. And I think possibly that's the case because things were moving so quickly that it was like, we don't have time to think about it. Just do it. Just get it done. We'll fix it in post, sort of thing.
Right there, we don't have time to think about it. Just do it.
Yeah.
I think that's this movie. Sorry, Darren. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I agree because you gave voice to what I was trying to wrap my head around. Like, I think specifically of the monkey auction jungle scene. That whole, you know what I mean.
I love that so much. And the music, I have no idea why I love that music so much.
I honestly, if there was ever a moment in my life where I was like, drinking is the correct choice for me, it's that one right there.
All right.
Oh,
so, but that scene, that is the vibe. It feels like, okay, I showed up on the set today. Where should we let's just put the camera over there. Okay, let's try that. Like it does not feel pre-produced. It feels like, and there's lots of parts of this movie that don't feel that little bit of intentionality where you're like, that's a really cool, like, I can see what you're doing with that shot. It's more like, let's just make sure we got coverage. And especially with Schwarzenegger in any scene, your coverage is, make sure you don't include Mr. Freeze in the background of any shot that he's not meant to be in because he's not actually here. We can't actually get that.
mm-hmm.
I mean, oh gosh. And then you just throw in there's the two physics moments that I just pull my hair out. One where his gun gets knocked out of his hand and it leaps.
Yeah. Yes, I know exactly the scene you're talking about.
And it's so obviously a reverse shot. Obviously a reverse shot. And then he grabs the vine and gives it a tiny tug and leaps onto, why didn't you just jump? You obviously did not need this vine in support to jump.
Darren,
oh my gosh.
Darren, okay? This man had a rocket that he was shooting into space. And then Batman and Robin
surf their way down.
Cowabunga! Cowabunga, Tristan!
Up. Yeah.
I don't think physics comes into the equation.
Exists. Physics does not exist in this movie.
Okay.
That is what we're saying.
I want to talk about Freeze seriously, though, for a moment, because at this time, I am deep into Batman the Animated Series. That is my Batman. That was my introduction to, I didn't read comics going up. That's what introduced this. And gosh, the Freeze arc in Batman the Animated Series is so good. Is such a great take on the character.
Sure is.
This is so much like I watched those few episodes of Batman 66 that had Egghead and Mr. Freeze and the weirdest of villains. And it's like, gosh, if this movie had centered around Freeze really in that tragic manner, my gosh, it could have been amazing. And that is not at all what we got. So,
although I will offer a thought that I offered to you before, Darren, where there is no planet on which Dr. Freeze, who is also like an Olympic, was it triathlete, decathlete, whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Where he's done research where he's figured out the cure for stage 1 of a disease, and pharma companies and or governments aren't lining up to be like, what are you doing here? No, here's a dump truck of money. Help us figure this out, please. He doesn't need to go around looking for funding. His motivation is completely way off the charts.
And maybe don't sink that funding into a goddamn rocket.
Or a suit.
Okay,
how much does
true.
that suit cost, Mr. Freeze?
His irresponsibility in spending might have been a problem. That's true.
Snowy Cone Hideout. That's not free. It's not cheap. Where are you spending this money?
Yeah,
we got to audit your books, Mr. Freeze.
And also,
why was Vivica A. Fox in this?
There. Why was she there? I don't know. I have no idea.
What a waste. What a weird casting decision.
I mean, the thing is, Batman and Robin could also be one of those ones that like spurs that deeper discussion of like, why do henchmen hang out with these guys? Like, is there a health plan? Like, what's a 401k for one of these guys? Because he's killing people and freezing them to death.
My sister and my father and I went and saw this. Batman Robin, because we loved Batman Forever so much. All three of us, we loved it. Like we bought Forever on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K. We absolutely loved this movie. This was a family favorite, sans my mother. And one thing that my sister absolutely loved was that ending shot of Forever, like the over the top, the running at the camera in front of the bat signal.
Yep.
It was a really cool way to set it different from the Keaton-esque just looking off into the distance. Because they even did that in Mask of the Phantasm, where he's standing on top of a building and looking at the signal. This was much more presentational. This was much more theatrical. And my sister absolutely loved it. And I think she even tried to get like a poster of it. And then when they did it again in Batman and Robin, but yet with Batgirl, she lost her mind. She's like, they ruined it. They absolutely ruined it. She's like,
yes,
she's walking out of the theater just screaming to us about this. And then she's like, and Alicia Silverstone, she never stops moving her lips. It's so freaking weird.
I can also say that, as a Batman fan, and my brother, is a huge Batman fan. He's the reason I became a Batman, blah, 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 all that stuff we've said before. When we heard Bane's going to be in this, we were like, oh, wow, Bane of Nightfall fame is going to be in this movie. And what we got on screen.
You mean the military genius, Bane?
Oh, my word. That was definitely the thing that we hung on because Darren just is a fine, is there any aspect of the Bane character? Divorce him from the beauty that is in the comics or Tom Hardy's fun interpretation of him in Dark Knight Rises. Is there anything about this henchman version of Bane where you find particular value? Was he necessary to anything?
No, I mean, you just said it. He's a henchman. He's a glorified, he does not even need to be Bane. He could just be she breaks into Freeze's lair and is like, oh, look, there's a big henchman. He's going to go work for me. Same movie. Like, I didn't need a special super soldier serum just to break walls and be monosyllabic. Like there's nothing about I mean, it's a little funny, when they're coming off the airplane in the stock photo and he's dressed in his shirt. Like, yeah, that's funny. It's really dumb. But that's it. There's like, you would not, it feels like Bane. You say the name, but then watching this movie, you're like, am I supposed to know who that is? Is he a notable presence in Batman lore? Because I would not guess it based on this movie.
No, you wouldn't guess it from this movie. But what you would guess is, I think it's very clear that Batman fans, while they might have gone back and forth a bit about Batman Forever, they all found something to like about it, at least, as did audiences in general. Batman and Robin was a different tale. It's reportedly up to $160 million budget. They brought back $238 million. And regardless of whether you think that's successful, it did, in fact, kill the franchise for almost a decade. It Superman for'd them real hard. So with all of that in mind, we have two ratings to give here, Darren. I'm going to toss it to you first. Where are you coming in with Batman Forever on the vaunted 5-star scale? And where are you coming in with Batman and Robin?
Yeah, Batman Forever is a lot of fun. I think we all really enjoy. It's also not one of those movies that I feel like you have to have seen it in the 90s to get it, to be like, well, I enjoy this because of the nostalgia. It's just fun. If you can get on board with kind of the wackiness and the chewing of I mean, they're all chewing the scenery so hard, so hard in that movie, but that's what it is. You're easily within the first few minutes totally know what you're going to get from this movie. And if you're on board, you're fine. And then, with Batman and Robin, you come into it like, okay, here we go. And then you're like, what am I watching is happening on the screen? The single seat Batmobile that looks like a go-kart. It's so small. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, why does the water turn red, John? Why does it turn red when he's melting him? Water doesn't turn red. unless it's blood. It's like the water should be bubbling, but I know visually it's like red hot, blue cold, but water doesn't change color when you heat it. So anyway, I'm coming back. No, I'm going to honestly start with Batman and Robin. I just, for watchability, it's definitely higher. It's just a fun romp. For quality of movie, it's a 1. It's just, this movie is, it does cross into the it's so bad it's good, but that doesn't mean the rating is moving up. I'm sorry, I can't. As far as Batman Forever, I really enjoyed this rewatch of it. It was really enjoyable. Is it the best Batman? It depends on your mood and your time of day and how you're feeling about what you want to watch. But I'm going to give it a solid 3. It's a really enjoyable movie, and on this rewatch, I'm like, I'm going to watch this again more often. I think it's definitely bringing it back into the fold. So a 3 for Batman and Forever, and a 1 for Batman and Robin, to no one's surprise.
Now, Tristan, I'm going to let you go last. I'm going to go next. And I'm going to say that, Darren, I like the way you're approaching it. I'll also go in reverse because I want to end on an up note as opposed to just, curb stomping Batman and Robin on the way out the door. Batman and Robin, I traditionally given a half star. I'll go ahead and give it 1 star simply because I do, in fact, enjoy hating it. This is a movie that actually makes me feel better about myself because I feel like I can watch it and say, I think I could do better. We all fall into that egotistical trap, but this is a movie where I really feel like if I'd been on set in any capacity, I could have given counsel that could have made things better. It's egotistical, but I still am drawn to it like moth to a flame, like a slow motion car wreck, like a train derailment. I still rewatch it. If I hate it that much, why am I rewatching it? Because it's Batman. And I don't know. I find some comfort in how much it sucks. So it's a 1. Batman Forever, I have very much warmed up to over time. I'm coming in with a 3, but that is actually over the time since it's been released. It has gone through a wild range of ratings. But I'm just going to stick with a 3 because I'll borrow a word from you, Tristan. This was intentional, and I can get behind intentional. Don't love it. Don't hate it. There are things about it that I do like. So it's intentional. It's a 3 stars. And then Tristan, I cede the floor to you to take us home.
Well, with Batman and Robin, I can't give it a 1. Because to me, on my scale, a 1 is a waste of film. 1.5 is a Walmart bin. And so I'm giving it a 2 as just straight bad. Don't overreact like 2 is some vaunted.
Who's reacting? I didn't say anything.
I did not see Tristan rating this higher than us. I did not see that on my bingo card today.
There you go.
No, I think the reason why is just because it's one of those things. It's kind of like a riff tracks effect. It's so much. I get so much enjoyment from it that this isn't like Birdemic where it's painful to watch, or where it's The Room where you're like, you get enjoyment from it, but yet it's just absolutely poorly made. I mean, like that deserves a 1. I mean, that's the thing, is that like The Room deserves 1 star, but you still get 5 stars worth of enjoyment. Batman and Robin is not 1 star in my mind because it's still something that's put together. You have to really, really piss me off for me to give you a 1 or a 1.5 or a half star. I can't even remember the last time. Like Darren, you have the sheet in front of you. You can tell me what I gave 1 star. But yeah, to me, I'm giving it 2 stars because it's like 2 stars is bad to me. Like 2 stars is bad. Like, okay, this is a bad film, but yet I still get a lot of joy out of it. With Batman Forever, I want to give it 4 stars. I really do. I want to give Batman Forever 4 stars, but I can't because there are things that I think are wrong with it. There are times when they go a little bit too, not a little bit. There are times when they go too far. And so I have to give it a 3, like the rest of you. I think I get a lot of pleasure out of watching Batman Forever. I'm going to continue to watch it. It's more than 3 stars in my mind, but in reality, I'm giving it 3.
Yeah, the last time you gave a 1 was for A Nightmare on Elm Street,
which was incorrect.
Absolutely hated. But you did also give a 1.5 for Cobra. So yeah, those are bottom barrel. For sure.
I think Mad Max too. Didn't you give Mad Max a 1? Yeah. So I think you gave Mad Max a 1. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It doesn't
you did
matter.
give it a 1.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
We all gave it a 1. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we're still in the wing of Batman. Our summer series continues with somebody who wears a suit that would undoubtedly chafe and cause issues during summer. Darren, where are we pointed next?
Well, the franchise didn't exactly die, but it did take a while to recover. Next, we're going to be covering Christopher Nolan's take on The Dark Knight with Batman Begins from 2005. Next on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.